What is shaken, Internet? This is Saltz bringing you the How to Tank for Dummies General Nazgrim Guide. General Nazgrim is the 8th boss in the Siege of Orgrimmar raid instance, and the last boss for the second quarter LFR instance named the Gates of Retribution. For those of you in queue or fighting trash, a quick synopsis. Swap tanks at about 4 stacks of Sundering Blow, and tank the adds while not tanking the boss. Kill banners and totems immediately if they spawn, and don't stand in lines of fire or spinning weapons. Okay, let's start on the real guide for dummies. There's a decent amount of trash in the caverns leading up to Nazgrim, but what's nice is they give you a preview of the adds in the fight. To put things simply, interrupt the War Shaman's heals and kill their totems. Interrupt the Arcweavers if you want. Don't turn your back on assassins, but it shouldn't matter for tanks. And just tank the Iron Blades. We'll cover them slightly more in depth during the boss. Nazgrim himself is surrounded by a bunch of little adds. Normally you have to pull these adds with the boss because they're linked, but as you can see in the background video, you could just have someone run in and immediately reset the fight, with things like Fade Death, etc. The adds won't come back if you reset the boss or die, and have to run back in at least. Nazgrim actually is a pretty straightforward boss himself. His main mechanic in the fight is Rage. Nazgrim will gain Rage consistently throughout the fight depending on how everyone deals with his moves. Every 15 seconds or so, he will cast a move that costs Rage. He has 4 different moves that can be cast, and he will cast the most expensive one available. We'll cover these moves in just a moment. Now, he only has 2 moves that he will cast regularly outside of the Rage mechanic. Sundering Blow is the first and important one for tanks. It deals a good chunk of damage and reduces armor by 10% per stack. Nazgrim gets 5 Rage out of this move, and he'll get 5 bonus Rage for every stack his target already has of the armor debuff. To put it simply, the more stacks you have, the more Rage Nazgrim will get from this buff, or from this attack. The combination of removing armor and increasing Nazgrim's Rage requires you to swap tanks at about 4 stacks. This move doesn't hurt very much early on, but not only will it get stronger with stacks, but his normal hits will start hurting more as you go, so be prepared to use cooldowns as you take these hits. The other move he'll do outside of Rage stuff is Bone Cracker, which puts a DOT on random raiders and reduces their health by 10%. This doesn't seem to target tanks, but be careful if you somehow get hit by this, as the health drop is pretty substantial. Now, let's talk about Nazgrim's Rage costing moves. First up is Heroic Shockwave, which makes him jump to a random raider and create lines of fire on the ground. The initial jump does some small damage in a small radius around the raider, but the fire lines do a large amount of damage to anyone that stands in them when they blow up. Additionally, Nazgrim will get bonus Rage for everyone hit by these fire lines, so make sure to stay out of these. This move costs Nazgrim 30 Rage and will be used if he has less than 50 Rage when he cools down. Now, Corcoran Banner is up next. This costs him 50 Rage and summons a banner. It's a simple and stationary add by itself, but it makes any attacks done by any of the adds in the entire fight give Nazgrim bonus Rage. It should be killed immediately to stop him from gaining a crazy amount of Rage. Nazgrim will use this move if he's between 50 and 70 Rage when he cools off. War Song is a move that costs about 70 Rage and simply does a huge amount of damage to the entire raid. Technically, it does 50% of each person's maximum health, but it's physical damage, so your armor will save you quite a bit. The squishies aren't as fortunate, so pop raid-wide cooldowns if this is about to happen. Nazgrim will use this if he has between 70 and 100 Rage. Finally is Ravager, which lets Nazgrim throw a spinning blade at a random raider. This does a big chunk of damage to anyone who stands in it and gives Nazgrim Rage if anyone gets hurt by it. These spinning weapons stay for the rest of the fight, so you'll have to avoid them constantly for the remainder of the fight. Now, before we cover his Rage mechanics, let's cover his stances briefly. Nazgrim will switch very quickly between 3 stances: Normal or Battle, which does everything normal and increases Nazgrim's Rage by 1 per second; Berserker, which removes his passive Rage increase, but makes all his other Rage-generating moves give him double the Rage; or Defensive, which makes Nazgrim gain 3 Rage for every attack done on him and reduces his damage. This luckily doesn't matter for tanks, as attacks made by the tanks do not increase the Rage generated at all. That covers everything you have to deal with from Nazgrim himself. To cover it briefly, you'll have to keep swapping tanks at 4 stacks of Sundering Armor, and be prepared to move out of fire lines, kill banners, take a huge amount of damage, or avoid spinning weapons every 15 seconds, depending on his Rage level in that order. Now, that's not all of the fight, however, since Nazgrim will continuously spawn adds every 45 seconds or so. Luckily, there are only 4 types of adds and 2 spawn at a time. Most, if not all, are shown in the trash leading up to Nazgrim, but we'll go ahead and cover them again briefly. Now, Iron Blades are the adds that require a tank. They only have two moves. First is their spin that deals constant damage to everyone near them, and second is the Last Stand, which just increases their health when they get low. Remember that if you're tanking these after tanking the boss, you'll still have Sunder armor stacks, meaning you'll be taking more damage from physical hits than usual, so be cautious. They don't do a lot of damage, but you should be aware of that armor debuff that you're going to get. War Shamans are next, and they have three moves. First is summoning a healing tide totem that heals every enemy close to them for a large amount. These must die quickly if they're near Nazgrim, as they heal a percentage of health. If they're not near Nazgrim, they still must die very quickly to avoid keeping the extra adds alive. Their next move is Empowered Chain Heal, which is just a big heal that jumps around and heals more people as it goes. You need to interrupt this at all costs. Finally is Earth Shield, which will heal whoever it's cast on by 5% when they take damage. This is pretty much unavoidable in LFR, so just ignore it and continue burning down whatever ad you're focused on. The point is that they put the Earth Shield down, and then it's supposed to be dispelled before anybody starts damaging them again, but you can't expect that to happen very quickly in LFR. Now, Arcweavers are up next, which really only have two moves. Let's see. First is Arcane Shock, which does a big chunk of damage and increases the damage the Arcweaver's spells do by 25% per stack. This is interruptible, and should be, if at all possible. The other is Magistrike, which does damage to an area and puts a DOT on any player's hit. This is also interruptible, and should also be interrupted. Luckily, these guys have much lower health than the previous two adds, so they shouldn't be around for very long. They'll also blink around the area, which is really annoying, but chase them down and keep up the interrupts when you're tanking them. Assassins are the last type of ad, which can't be tanked. They will fixate on random raid members and then attack them. Worse is that if they attack a raider from behind, they do pretty much lethal damage, so the player who's fixated on must face them at all times. These guys will start out stealthed, but since they can't be tanked, they really don't matter much to you as a tank. And that's it for the fight. Recap time. When tanking Nazgrim, watch for his moves: Leap and Fire Lines, Banner, High raid wide damage, and Spinning Blade, in that order. Swap tanks at 4 stacks of Sundering armor. When not tanking Nazgrim, go deal with adds. You need to tank the Iron Blades, interrupt the War Shamans and destroy their totems, try to keep interrupting the Arcweavers and chasing them down, and kill Assassins if you have nothing better to do. I hope you enjoyed this quick and easy guide for dummies. Please like, favorite, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and, as always, you keep it salty, Internet.